I'm Carey Stinson, and my journey through life has been quite an adventure. For over 20 years, I played Barney the Dinosaur on tour and 7 seasons of the hugely popular TV show Barney and Friends. Now my journey is to bring together friends and guests from all over the entertainment world for inspiring and at times amusing behind-the-scenes conversation. I'm Carey Stinson, and this is Purple Roads. Welcome to Purple Roads. My name is Carey Stinson. As always, I'm so thrilled you're here. And this is, I say this each week that this is such a special episode, but it really is. I watched this gentleman. I love this show, and I loved him on this show, and I'm so thrilled to have him. We have Greg Lee, the host of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
What?
How are you, Greg?
That's amazing. How are you, Carey? Excited to be here.
Great and thrilled to have you.
Well, it's very kind of you to have me on your show, man. It really is. I'm thrilled about it. I've been a fan of Barney for years. I to this day, I remember seeing it the first time, saying to my wife, that is one of the most brilliant, genius, simple, needed shows that I've ever seen. I mean, I'm a huge fan of it. I love you, you love me. I mean, what else do you need? What else does the world need, Carey? Seriously.
Isn't that funny though, that it really is that simple?
Yeah. It's deceptively simple because it's just so huge. It's so huge. And when you think about it, what's happening? It looks like nothing is happening, but so much is happening. And it's, I've always I always have admired that show and your work, and it was just great. And just a great thing. I'm sorry that I don't see it all the time now still.
Well, thank you.
You could probably use it.
No, well, there's no question. There's no question. It's funny, as I've started doing this, how much you see that. And, I remember back in the 90s doing this, and you tell, the issue of love and telling people they love them and this and that.
Yeah.
And I don't know that adults at that point were ready for it. And of course, the kids, because they're all smarter than us, we're absolutely ready for this.
Yeah.
And, for an adult to see their kid, look over at mom or dad and say, I love you. They started getting it. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I'm being totally sincere with you. I've always just admired that show for its simplicity and its just huge message. And, it just put it out there. It wasn't like trying to be, it didn't pretend like it wasn't doing that. I mean, when you've got a song that ends every show that way, that's what the thing is, here it is. And I just always thought that was just the coolest, really.
Well, it's really perfect. It's, it's why I do this, because I know each week I'm going to talk to someone. We have the same thing and talk about a song. Where in the world of Carmen Sandiego? How can you not sing and love that song? And I really believe the same thing with your show, that it was that simple.
Wow.
You couldn't stop watching it. You started and you just couldn't stop watching it.
I think, as the years have progressed, because I'm an old guy now, but as they continue to go by, with each passing year, I get more and more just grateful to have just even been a part of it. My little dib that I did. There were so many ridiculously talented people on that show. You talk about the song, Sean Altman and David Yazbek, who wrote one of the greatest songs. I mean, it's just a great song. You cannot get out of your head, and yet it's one of those songs you can't get out of your head, but you're kind of glad it's in there too. It's not like it's one of those you want out. But then just from the costuming and the sets, and Howard Blumenthal, who kind of came up with the whole thing, taking it from the computer game at that time and turning it into this, even at that time, having it look old for its time. Now it looks ancient, now you really think we might have done it in the 40s or the 50s, but even then it looked dated, which I always thought was just, as a kid from the 60s and 70s, I always thought that was a cool thing, because it was it looked old and looked cool, and it was, the old gumshoe, detective thing was just kind of cool. So yes, I agree. I agree with you, and I say it only because I knew I wasn't the star of that show. I knew that Lynn Thigpen was the star of that show, then Rockapella, then Carmen, then the map, then the kids, then maybe me. So I've never felt like it was my thing. I've always felt like, man, you were lucky just to kind of tag along and just not get bucked off for 5 years. That was amazing because we just had a great time. You know, I met my wife on that show. It was just some of the greatest people I've ever worked with. And as like I say, as the years go by, I just really understand how special and weirdly lucky I was just to have landed that somehow. So it was, yeah, yeah. I'm a fan
Well,
of it
there's so
too.
many places to go here with all that. Yeah. Well, first of all, we had Howard on here.
Oh, you did.
We
Oh,
did.
you did. Oh, he's the
We
greatest.
we did, and just fascinating.
He's a mad genius, man. He's a mad genius who continues to just astound me. He and I talked maybe a week ago. I wish I would have known he had done this. I would have talked to him about it.
He did, and I sat there with my jaw down, hearing how it all came together, what he did at the time. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I also know you're not giving yourself enough credit, because it really, I think that show and Lynn Thigpen, yeah, just
Well,
incredible.
yeah.
Incredible. But I think it was because of all of that that worked so well, is the song and her and you and all of that, because you had to keep that all together. You did. I mean, you did. You had to keep all that going.
Well, it's very kind of you.
Which I know is a lot harder to do than it looks.
Well, I know you're one of the few people on the planet who can't appreciate what that is. It is one of those things of, it's a little harder than it looks.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, the hardest part, people always say to me, what was the hard part of that show? And the hardest part, because I'm fairly dyslexic, was reading the cards, was always the scary part. And I'm not even kidding, because some of those country names and some of the names of the guys, the leaders, you know, would just spin my head around. And, you know, on a tired day when the letters were just dancing on me, I would just say anything and we'd fix it later, because I'm not going to figure it out in the flow of this sentence, you know? So I forget where I was going with that, but anyway, it was, I'm so glad you get to talk to Howard, is the main thing, because he really was. I knew Howard from a long time before that. I think the only reason I even had a shot at getting that show was because of Howard and Dana Calderwood, our director, because I had done a lot of audience warm-up before that for a lot of Nickelodeon shows and CBS shows and stuff. And I think that was the only reason I was still, after 300 guys they looked at, I was still in the contention with the three of us that were left. Because I remember that final audition when they were, you know, I was looking through the doors at the other guys auditioning, you know, and just saying, well, I'm not going to get this because, you know, they're tall and good looking and they've traveled and they speak all these languages. You know, I've been nowhere. I've done nothing. You know, what do I know? I've done warm up for a few years, you know, that's all I knew how to do. But I think that might have been the only reason they knew that for that show, especially that first year, as we were figuring it out, it was a little bit crazy, fun, but really hard and really crazy. And I think they knew that it wasn't going to bug me too much, because I kind of like that, you know, when it's a little bit.
So where does that come from? Where does that come from, where you're comfortable in the chaos?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I think one thing was, it was never I mean, I always wanted to do a good job, for any job I was hired for. But you know, may have come from my time in warm up for a lot of it, just because you know, when something would go down with the TV show, you know, you were kind of on to kind of sing and dance and tap it out and talk to people and whatever, you know, just kind of see how long you can survive, you know. And I think you just kind of get into that head of it. And I think also I try not to take myself too seriously. I'm pretty well aware, not of all my faults, but I know, you know, what I can't do pretty well, and kind of what I can. And you know, I can see the crash coming, because I know I don't know how to read that card or that word. Okay, here we go, bing, you know.
Right.
So it might just be just not taking yourself too seriously. Yeah, it is television after all. No one's going to die. It's okay. We'll redo it. It's like this interview. You may realize 5 minutes in, this was a horrible mistake to have him on. He doesn't know he can't remember any stories. He doesn't know anything. But you know, okay, it's recorded or whatever. We can go back and whatever. Anyway, so I don't know.
First of all, you're not that old, because we're in the same. We're pretty close to each other. So that old thing, you know.
Well, this is why you're going to outlive me, man, because you have a positive attitude. I'll be 60 next March, and I'm like, oh man, when did this happen? You know. So yeah, whatever. Get that stretching in, baby. Do that stretching every morning. Get your lemon water going. Let's go. There you go. Get your lemon water, your black coffee. That's right. Get that.
Exactly. That was my morning. That's my morning. So we're right there.
Mine
We're
right there. The black coffee. Got some of that. Get some tea. Gonna get the liquids going.
That's it. That's it. And I forget many stories, so don't worry about that either. We're in the
Okay,
same
great.
boat there too.
Terrific. Yeah.
So let's talk about, because I know this in dealing with the kids, right?
Yeah.
Your audience, because in watching that show, some of those kids were so serious.
Yes. Yeah, they were.
Right. They were taking on the questions and all of those things. They were so focused on that.
Yeah. Well, now,
and
when
you kind of guide them through.
Yeah. Now, when you had, as in answering or in commenting on that, let me just ask you quick. The kids on your show, they were all actors, right?
They are, but I almost use that loosely, not to take anything away from
I
anyone.
understand.
But they're
new actors.
kids, right? They're new actors. Some of them had some experience. But we were in Texas, where there's not a lot of activity there.
Yeah.
And a lot of them had seen the other kids.
Oh, right. That's right.
But a lot of them, this was their first time. And I think we were lucky, and you probably had this too. The people behind the scenes were so good at it. So the choreographer, for example, she could see who you could put in the big dance numbers, or who you pulled back, or where you put them, and the directors. And so a lot of them could just see the potential.
Yeah.
And bring them in and say, I know I can work with them and I can get them here and there. But we're famous for having Selena Gomez and Demi Lovato on our shows.
Unbelievable.
But both of them were just local. They went in the cattle call like everyone else. And
crazy.
Look what we found. So I'm curious.
Nice work.
That worked out. That worked out pretty well.
Did very well with them. Very good.
So I'm curious with that, because I remember with some of those kids, they were so focused on the game part of it.
Well, here's what I liked about I call them our kids, our contestants in particular, because they were, all of them, win, lose, or draw, were smart kids, which means some of them, you may not have been in the mainstream of school, right? And may have and that weren't necessarily the coolest kids of their school in their mind, right? On our show, you're the coolest guy in the world. We want you to be the cool kid, the nerd kid that knows all the stuff. It's going to serve you well on our show. You're going to get a trip, So we lean into that. We like that about you. But I think some of them were so used to doing so well that if they didn't do well, they were kind of tough on themselves sometimes. So we tried to keep it, and also, again, to your point, you're a kid and you're in this studio and you got the big map and you got the kids and the cameras and it can be a little bit. I try to tell my wife, I said, I see kids now on YouTube, I'm like, they know more at 7 than I did at 30 about just how to work the camera and the lighting and the thing and the whatever. Well, at that time, kids didn't have that. You were a kid going to a studio, and this is all a big thing.
Right.
So there's those nerves, there's the nerves of trying to do well, of maybe expecting, a lot out of yourself, because you're a successful kid, you're a smart kid, you're used to knowing stuff.
Right.
So to not win, or whatever, was stressful for some of them. For some, I think for most, they were just there to have a good time and have fun. I think that was always a big part of ours, was how we could, try to make a connection early on. As the years progressed and they knew what the gig was. And they got more comfortable with it, I think, because they knew who I was and they were excited to see us and see the guys. And Lynn, although Lynn was usually not there because we shot all of her stuff earlier, separately after the first year. But they just got better at it, and they seemed to get more comfortable with how it was going to lay out. And one of the biggest examples I say about that always is, it's like for those big maps at the end. You probably appreciate this, Carey, because when the first year, we used to have me read a bunch of clues before I would say the country or the state.
Right.
And I would just be eating at the kids' time. They only had 45 seconds. I'm reading as fast as I can. The kids like, just tell me where I'm going, man.
Right.
But there was a lot of tweaking, right?
Right.
Anyway, after a couple of years, the kids started figuring out if I get to the map, I'm going to study all the maps upside down, because when I'm standing with Greg, it is upside down, and I think that threw kids off the first time. Even if you knew your Africa map,
Right.
when you're standing on the map, it's upside down. It's kind of weirdo,
Right.
And it seemed to get better, just when they kind of knew what the gig was, And so I do think they got better because they got more comfortable with the whole how it works a little bit too. Anyway, but their kids they were just the coolest kids. They were always just my kind of kid. That was how I was in school, and it was my bunch. I dig those guys. So anyway,
well, there's a lot going so is it a live audience?
Yes. We would do the first 2 rounds. By actually the second season, I think we had this system where we would try to do 5 shows worth the first 2 rounds, send everybody home, come back and do the last, just a bunch of map rounds.
Okay.
And hope that nobody broke their arm while they were gone, or
right.
cut their hair or grew 6 inches.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
which we dealt with that too.
Yeah, right. So live audience. Usually, I think they had 300 in the audience. Then those rafters back there usually.
And then Rockapella was there.
They're there. Yeah, I was there and they were there. We had our bits. Sometimes we'd do, like, if they had a really elaborate song to do, they would maybe do it early in the morning. Like they did a cool Beatles one once where it ended. It was Dana Calderwood, who was a huge Beatles fan, and it ended looking like, what's the cover? I forget what cover it was. It looked exactly like, it closed the song.
Right.
It looked like the cover, So for all the boomers, we were like, oh, that's the greatest thing in the world. Oh, that's so, don't you get what this is, kids? This is the coolest thing. They just thought we turned the lights down. They didn't realize how cool we were being. But yeah.
So that's a lot for the kids though, right? Because you got the audience, you got them, they got you.
It's a lot. I the only thing I can possibly compare it to, because as a kid growing up in Nebraska, our, if we're similar age, that this too. You had your cartoons in the afternoon for about an hour and a half,
right?
And then Saturday morning, that was kind of your block of kid stuff. And so our hour and a half time in the afternoon, we came out of Lincoln, the big town,
right?
And you would go there with your birthday party to Cartoon Corral. And there you'd have Calamity Jane there. She'd talk, you sit around the corral, she's in her cowboy hat and stuff. And then she'd show a cartoon and come back and we'd sing happy birthday and another cartoon. And I remember, I think I went twice to that show as a little guy. And it's just what you're saying. It was like, it was overwhelming. It was like amazingly not what I thought it was going to be, because where's the rest of the corral? It's only stops there. Where's the pasture? Where's the stuff? Oh, there's cameras now, there's lights, and but then when she would walk in, I'd get all excited because it was her.
Right.
It's funny. I'll tell you a quick story. I cannot remember that woman's name, and she was huge growing up because she did I feel terrible. I can't remember her real name, Calamity Jane. But anyway, she would do Cartoon Corral, she would do the morning show, and she would do the Sunday real estate show. She was our local statewide person who did all that stuff. Anyway, so one time we were back in Nebraska doing a live Carmen show, and at the last minute I found out that Calamity Jane was going to introduce me, and I about passed out. I couldn't believe it. There she was, and I went into the whole story of how many times I was on the show, and she was great. She was very nice. She went, "That's great, Greg. You'll go on after this." And then she went, "Okay, right. Okay, calm it down. Just settle down. Just get to work."
It's so fun though, because I had the opportunity to meet some people too, like that for me you're freaking out, and you remember for me, obviously they're there for Barney, right? They have their kids and this and that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, look who I'm. But you have to focus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And it's funny because I never, even when the show was on the air, I never got recognized ever.
Really?
ever. Unless I had the blue coat on and the hat, nobody knew who I was.
Really?
Maybe my voice once in a while. I mean, at the peak, never got recognized. Because I'd be walking with Lynn. She was we were buddies, and she would come. We'd have dinner and stuff, and they'd always recognize her from a lot of things. Obviously, never knew who I was. Never said anything. Okay, that's interesting. But even now today, because it's not that I'm ashamed of it. I just never bring it up. I never tell anybody I was on the show. I just never dawns on me to say, hey, by the way, did you know?
Sure.
But when people find out that I was on the show, and I'm not lying about this, Carey, this happens all the time. People will say to me, you were on Carmen Sandiego? And I'll say, yeah, I was actually. Were you there for all 5 years? I said, yeah. What did you do on that show? And I'll say, and then I realized, and what I started doing a few years ago was I would say, oh, I was part of Rockapella. You guys were great. Thanks very much. What part did you sing? Oh, one of the middle parts, one of them in there. You guys were terrific. Oh, thanks. And sometimes I will tell them the truth, but unless they're really excited, then I think, why ruin it? Let them meet Rockapella. They're much more excited about that. Who wouldn't be? I would be more excited than that.
Well, obviously I can understand this because, no one knew my face, as you can.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
So when people find out, you can, the same kind of thing. And of course, I've had people, you making that up, and because this is, we were back before all the internet, all this, social media and all those things, right? So it's the same thing. So, when people first started finding out, or a buddy would tell them or something, oh, you're making that up. Well, if I was going to make something up, there's probably some other things where I would have gone. But now, you type my name in and boom, it pops. Same for you.
Yeah.
And so it's a very interesting thing, and that's fascinating to me because I know. I mean, I watched the show all the time. I really did. I thought there was something with that show.
Yeah.
The energy of that song, and then the energy that you kept it, and maybe because of what I was doing, I understand how difficult it is what you were doing.
Yeah.
To guide that, and you really have to read the kids the whole time.
Yep.
Because I toured for Barney for 5 years, and then the TV show for 12, and all these things. So working with kid actors, I mean, we've had kids walk off the set during a take
because they were upset, or
they had to go to the bathroom. They saw something that was interesting. I mean, all kinds of things, right?
Yeah, right.
All kinds of things. So I understand. Oh, okay, today we got this. Oh, it's going to be like. Oh, it's going to be like that. And so I know how difficult your job was. I know how difficult that is.
Well, thank you.
And seeing that with those kids, because I could see it, how focused some of them were.
Yeah, very focused.
And I thought, God, are they going to be? If they lose or they don't do it, or all of that.
Most were okay. The if they didn't win, they were okay. The worst that ever happened was on a final map, and the prize was, in case people don't remember. So if you identified 7 places in 45 seconds, you got to go to anywhere in the 48 states, right? You and a parent, you and a guardian, you and a whatever, you and an adult.
Right.
So anywhere in 48 states. Okay, great. So we were in New York City shooting the show, and so all those kids would go to Florida, or they'd go to California, and it was Disneyland, Disney World was always that was the bag, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was usually what it always was. So when they win, okay, with the show, you wrote down where you wanted to go, and you wanted to go to Florida, and everybody cheered,
Right.
So this boy won, and he killed it. He just bang, 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 bang. He knew his stuff, had it upside down, memorized.
Right.
He was cranking, nailed it. Place explodes. Got my little card out, my little folder thing. I'm like, okay, Johnny, you wanted to go too, and I turn the page. And you're going to Iowa, and the kids start booing. You stupid! No, boo! That's a really horrible. Just boo! The kid runs off. I'm like, what are you doing? We had to stop, give the audience a talking to. He can go wherever he wants to go. You're gonna cheer when we do this again. You're gonna cheer. He said, Bobby, you can go wherever you want to go. Maybe right California this time, but you can go to Iowa. I'm just telling you, can go. So we
Right.
redid it, and I think we put California for. I don't know. We may have let him keep Iowa. I don't remember, but that was the hardest one. I just because the kids just reacted. They weren't trying to
Right.
be mean. They were like, "What are you thinking? You had a chance to go to. What are you doing? You could go to California. You go to Iowa."
That's
So
hysterical.
yeah, so he bucked up and he was okay, but I couldn't blame him. You have 300 kids booing your choice. He wants to go see his grandmother. Well, okay.
Well, what also, when they got the consolation prize, was that hard for them? Like if
Uh,
you get, you don't get to go. Because I remember I've watched, in fact,
yeah,
I watched a couple before we did this
yeah.
again, and well, you didn't make it to this, but you got, whatever that is. That's got to be, it's
It's a
easy
little
for
tough.
an adult, but for a kid to tell them,
It's a little tough to get,
yeah,
yeah. And I think that's one reason why they were really good about, because they would kind of stack it on there. You could
yeah,
get the magazines and the radio and the thing and a patch and,
right,
okay, I get some stuff. So
right,
my guess is initially they felt bad, probably. I never talked to them, about it.
sure,
But we always were hoping they would, once they would get their pile of stuff, it would be okay, because we really just, I'm telling you, everybody I don't know how we were all from the same cloth, but we all, even my wife, we were all from this kind of nerdy, love books and stuff and
right,
things, and we love that stuff, and so
right.
we love those kids that also love that stuff, so we do get them to a degree. So I think most of them were probably okay with it, but you want to do the big thing with the whistle and the,
Well, right, right. But were you probably thinking, okay, I got to get rockapella out here, like, all right, now rockapella, because you can't feel bad when that song's going.
let's get dancing. Let's get dancing. Everything's
Right,
okay.
right,
Yeah. That was the great salve of any show I worked on. That one always, you're gonna be okay. We're just boom bop and here we go
right,
and dance around, man. It's gonna
right,
be okay.
right. Well,
Yeah.
I got to ask about Lynn Thigpen, because
Oh,
she was incredible. What was it like working with her, having her on the show?
well, I mean, I was just, I was so new. I hadn't done anything. I had
Okay,
done, well, that's not exactly true. I'd done a lot of Nickelodeon stuff. I'd done some show called Total Panic. I'd done a couple things like that, and I'd done a lot of warm up for like Double Dare and a bunch of shows like that.
right,
But she was a real actress. She'd been on Broadway and movies
yeah,
and it was kind of hard. And Howard, I think, Howard Blumenthal had her in his mind from the very beginning that she was the right choice. And it took it took some convincing to get her to do it. It really did. I think what I've heard anyway is that once we were able to meet, that we did have a weird connection, and I don't know what it was, but we really did love each other, and just dug each other. I just especially that first year, it was tough because we were doing everything live. So we would go from all the stuff in the office, then I go to her office, and we have to do that bit. And so I remember what that was, and remember that, and we're going to change it for the next show. It was a lot to hold in there, and the game play wasn't quite set yet. So those were long, hard days that first year. It just went on forever, those days. And I think there's something to that. You probably have this as well. When you go through, I don't know, I've never been in war, but they tell me you go through war, or you go through a hard time, or you go through a challenging thing together, I think that does affect your relationship, right? It kind of cements it in a certain way. So I think we definitely had that. We were great friends ever since that first year. And then after I think it was after the first year is when we started shooting her stuff separately so she could do other things. And then, she didn't need to sit through a lot of the stuff that we were doing. We could just get her stuff, bang it out in a couple of weeks. And so for a lot of the rest of the season, it was just she and I who just did stuff together. So we were always working together for just our own private couple of weeks, doing our little things. So she was just always a great friend and always extremely encouraging to me, as far as career and advice and things like that. And when I started writing for the show, I started writing a lot of those, we called them GILOs, G-I-L-O, Greg and Lynn's office is what we called those sketches. So I started writing a bunch of those and some other stuff. And when we first started, and maybe Howard would fight me on this. I think he would agree though. When we first started, I think we had her character, that was that stern character, and I was always the dummy.
Right.
And at some point we tried to shift it because I said, Lynn is hilarious. I don't know if you realize this or not, but Lynn is like really funny, and she can take a punch and make it and can sell it. I mean, she can do it. She's a comedic actress. People don't really know that about her, I don't think.
Right.
And so we kind of changed it where I was going to be more the kid, kind of how the kid would be,
Right.
and let her be more the butt of some jokes because she was strong enough and tough enough and smart enough, to handle it. So it's not like we had to be careful with her. You can make it. She put on boxing gloves that have their own thing and have her knock herself out, and it's she'll just flop back in the chair. So that was the thing for me that always impressed me, that because she was thrilled to do that stuff always, and she would put on a Viking helmet and sing and just do whatever. Once she got into it, she was just a killer, man. She was just hilarious. So she was nothing but great to work with all the time, and I just learned so much from her and was so encouraged by her and miss her so much. I mean, it's been a long time since she's been gone.
I know.
I did one bit part on her other show once. What was that? The District, where she was the star of that show, and I was like a mad parent at some little scene, and it was just fun to see her again on that set. And she was never embarrassed to be my buddy. She was never, try to, distance herself from any of that. She just was great always.
What do you think it is about that? Because I am so close with all of my Barney people.
Yeah, I bet so.
It hasn't changed one bit. So fun fact, I just got married over the weekend.
What? Congratulations.
Thank you.
We just had an anniversary to it yesterday, 2 days ago.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Good for you. September weddings. Good for
Yes.
you.
Yeah. And one of the actors that traveled with me actually was my officiant. And the actors that played Baby Bop and BJ were there. And we have just always been the absolute closest. I mean, it's just, there's a bond that happens.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could say the same thing with the directors and writers. There's a bond that happens there when you're working on something that you believe so much.
Yeah.
Right. It didn't matter who you were on Barney, whether you're actor or costume or wardrobe, or they all believed in it so much and they gave so much of themselves to it. What do you think it is about that?
That's a very astute question. I'm not really sure. And I've never, done long-term like drama series or comedy series, like long-term. So I don't know if it's the same.
But 5 years, 5 years is still a lot with what you all were doing.
Yeah, but I don't know but what I'm saying is I don't know if it's different for doing kid stuff, or is it different for the CSI people, or do they also feel that connection? My guess is they probably do. I like to think that the people who worked on our show or Double Dare or Doug or some of the Nickelodeon stuff, there's your show, there's a I don't want to call it a mission or a heart for, I think when you work for kids, there's another layer of care and wanting it to work. That's why I'm telling you from the top, I'm telling you, your show was, I was a huge fan of Mr. Rogers. I think that guy was just like a genius. I think you guys were in the same vein of that. Blue's Clues, same idea of just finally some sweetness in the world that is just what we all need. I will watch it to calm myself down.
Right.
I would do it because it was just, you come in after a hard day. I love you, you love me. I mean, let's go. That's why I could use some of that.
Well, it's part of why I started this, because I got to meet Mr. McFeely early on. And I was in a Barney event he was at, and they introduced me to him, and I was just like, such a huge fan. And he walked around and he went and put the wardrobe on, and the door opened, and he said, "Speedy delivery," and I just nearly melted. And it's that same passion you're talking. I mean, he took it, he knew, and he became it right there. And you just were like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And look, I know that there are people who people are people, and there are people who work in kids stuff who are part of it. You need the paycheck, and I get that.
Sure,
Part of
sure.
it's a job, and let's just be clear, it's a business, it's the thing, and let's not make it too Pollyanna-ish.
Right.
We get it. This is that as well, and so there are some elements and people who are just man, I would have loved to have done that, but I'm stuck doing this, so got to pay my light bill or whatever.
Sure.
And I've done jobs like that where I just had to just do it. It wasn't something I was necessarily passionate about or loved, which is
Right.
why I think I have such a good feeling about this and Doug, some of the other things I've done, Double Date, certain things that, were cool. They were like, were
Right.
great. So, but I do think there's a majority of people that work specifically with kids and continue to work in kids television or kids entertainment or whatever it is.
Yes.
There is a certain kind of person that really gets, I'm not going to compare us to teachers because I hold them extraordinarily high. But there is something that is important. And, ask Calamity Jane. It's important. It will matter
Right.
when the guy's 35. And I'm sure you get this too. I still get people. I don't do Facebook. I don't have any presence anywhere.
Yeah.
But I will still get people who will ask me, who will catch me on Facebook when I'm checking on something else
Right.
and want to talk about the old days. And I'm like, aren't you like 42 years old? What do you care about? Why do you want to talk to, I'll talk to you about it, but why does it matter? And then I have to go back and say, well, because it matters, man, because it was a thing. Oregon Trail was a thing,
Right.
and it matters.
Right.
Carmen mattered, Barney mattered, so, okay, I get it. Okay. You want to not forget that. So I think there's a majority of people that continue to work in kids TV and entertainment that get that, love that, and see the value of that, because it's kind of our last shot in a lot of ways, man. And that's why I'm always glad to hear that Howard Blumenthal's mad scientist is always coming up with more stuff, and usually has to do with kids, and it'll be interesting and cool whatever he comes up with. So.
Well, when I got into it, it's exactly what you're talking about. That I was, I was trying to get into the business. I was a musician,
Yeah.
and definitely needed a paycheck, but just was really interested in it. When I got into it, I mean, it wasn't long before I realized this was a responsibility.
It's a responsibility. That's exactly what it is.
There's, I was 23 years old, but all of a sudden, Barney can't be sad. Barney can't be having a bad day. None of that. All of a sudden, when I'm on stage, it's on, and it's the high levels and all of those things.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing these kids. I'm not talking about the actors, but the audience. And my goodness, the love and the fearlessness, because we were doing hospitals and we were doing all kinds of things. And you start realizing, wait a minute now, this is a lot bigger. This is a lot bigger.
And it's bigger than you, bigger than me. It's bigger than that. And that's why, yes. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry, you got me.
No, but I saw that with you, right? When you came out, you can't be sad. You got to come out. The kids are expecting the same guy each week.
Yeah, and you gotta, you had a crappy day, and you're not sure how you're going to pay that, and you got some bad news about that, and let's figure out geography.
Right.
But in some ways, and maybe you felt this too, I could have been, a regular adult guy with a wife. You're going to have some bad days here and there, not because of the wife necessarily, but I'm just saying, it's life.
Right.
But you got to go to work. And in some ways, I have to say, there were definitely days when having to go to work or do those mall shows we used to do, or school visits or hospital, or whatever it was, did more for me than it did for them, I guarantee you, because I had to get up and just get over myself and focus on that kid or those kids or whatever, the kid who wants to go to Iowa with ganged up on, you got to focus on some other stuff and get out of your own stuff. And I don't know, it's, I don't know, are we just old guys who are kind of getting it? I mean, I know I didn't get all this when I was younger. I may have gotten a glimmer of it, but it has just gotten so much more clear to me the older I get, that how big it was and important that the responsibility, as you would say.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I've had some of those now adults tell me, I learned about love from Barney.
I believe that's
My
true.
parents didn't say I love you. I got it from I love you, and I got it from there. And obviously we had some that didn't like the show that then got older and went, I get it. Like I get
Yeah.
now I get what you were, I get
Right.
it. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
It's
I don't know. I just think my wife and I wrote some. We were doing some stuff for Highlights magazine recently. We wrote stuff, and I wrote and did some music, and it's an Audible podcast for they're Goofus and Gallant characters. So they wanted a series out of that. And after we finished it, the woman who was in charge of it, who I've known before Carmen, I worked on Carmen, and I did all the Nickelodeon stuff, and knows my wife and loves her. She was the one that brought us on. And when it went up, I remember she said to me, so there you go. We have another, and she's always worked in kids TV and kids entertainment, books, everything. She goes,
right.
well, there you go. She said, I'm going to quote her horribly, but she said, it's just another nice thing to do for some nice kids. And I thought, well, yeah, well, what's wrong with that? I mean, that's worth getting up for it, having some coffee, and going to work. If that's all I could do today, just do some nice stuff for some nice kids. Make it a little bit smoother, a little bit nicer, a little bit smarter, something. And that's, I don't know. Again, I know it's not, if anyone just pops into this at this time, a couple of middle-aged guys just go, oh, it's just so sweet and so wonderful. Well, look, we're men, we're normal guys, but there is something about that it just matters, man. And the meaner I see the world get, the more it matters to me that it has something else to go against, It just,
well, and that's it. That's part of why doing this, for people to hear that, understand it. Because I don't know that I would have believed it before I went in and jumped into it. And then you start seeing these things that almost don't make sense. I mean, I've told stories before of going into hospitals and a nurse is bawling, and what happened here? Well, that child hasn't spoken in 2 years.
Oh.
But Barney comes in, and all of a sudden the child gets what we as adults, we overthink everything, and we just get to the simple aspect of it. But the child gets it immediately. There's my friend, I'm comfortable and I love him, and boom. And then I got to go think about, my God, what just happened, and all those things. And I know you've seen stuff like this. The kids have responded to you because you're their safe place, right? They watch that show every day.
Yeah. And it's almost, I got to tell you, Carey, sometimes I think it's too big for me to get sometimes. It's almost like I'm too stupid to really get this. And I'm not trying to put myself down, but I'm really too dumb to get a lot of how this works. I almost have to just accept it and just know that it's there and try to get part of it because, like I say, it really doesn't have to do with me. There's this bigger thing with all these people and this thing that happens. If I can just do my little thing in there to kind of keep it rolling, I'll do that, But yeah, it's I don't know. It's bigger than you can really think about it, I think, sometimes. And I know people think we're making a bigger deal of it than it is, and I don't care.
Well, there's no question about it. I mean, Barney used to do we would do shows, 16,000 people would come see Barney perform. 16,000 people, and we would do like a sing-along, so it's like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
There's barely any, it's basic lights. There's no props. There's nothing other than that dinosaur dancing and singing. And they don't know it's me. So we talk about they have no idea. They didn't come for Carey. I'm very aware of that. They came for Barney. And my gosh, there's no question. I was, because I know what's coming next, right? So I know the I Love You song is coming, and to hear 16,000 people singing a song, there's something magical in that. And there's no question we need this now more than ever, because I've never seen anything like that. For everyone to be singing about love, how can you walk out of an arena upset when you've seen that?
It'd be hard to yell at somebody in the parking lot afterwards.
Well, how can you not? Right. And how can you not smile, hearing the bop? I mean, you just start the bop.
The world just started spinning better, just instantly, right? Everyone's kind of, we're all going. We all know what to do. Do it.
I'll be singing it all day.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just think, the nice things for some nice kids. Nothing wrong with that, man. Not a thing wrong with that.
So you
No.
worked on a lot of different shows though, kids
Yeah,
shows.
yeah, a lot. Yeah, that's sort of where I started,
Right.
and I didn't really have a plan for it. The guy who did created Doug, Jim Jenkins, he's a good buddy of mine, and I knew him from church, believe it or not, in New York City. He's from the South, and I from the Midwest, and we both kind of went to these Southern Christian schools and ended up in church in Manhattan. And
Right.
he and I used to do what they called Bible Hour together, which is kind of like the kids class, and he'd
Right.
do the puppet and I do the hosting. And he was the one who first got me my very first warm up gig because I said, I don't know what warm up is, man. And he goes, oh, it's kind of like Bible Hour without the songs. I said, oh, okay. I know what I'm doing. Because they usually would have stand-up comedians do it, and I was just doing, Bible Hour without the song, just a lot of chants and we're call and response and just horsing around, fun. So yeah, so I did a lot of those though, and to this day, still, I look back on those warm-up days. I almost like those more than anything else I've ever done because it was just fun. I would go from one show to the next, and work a couple hours here, do a couple hours there, kind of just horsing around and messing around, and kids screaming and clapping and laughing and on to the next. It was just fun. I was 20, what was I, 25, 26. It was fun, banging around New York, riding my bike to the next gig, it was fun. It was a blast. It was a blast, man. So yeah, I kind of missed those particular days. But it was a time back then. Nickelodeon was doing a lot of live action stuff then, and it was before Doug kicked in. All the animation stuff that they do, which is great, but it was just a different. Us old guys always say it's when Nickelodeon was Nickelodeon back in the
Right.
old days when it was sort of like a 50s TV show, sort of like,
Right.
let's make some TV, So yeah.
And then Double Dare
Yeah, I
was
only did the
big.
last. I'm huge, and I only did the last season of that as a warm-up guy. But just great people again. And Mark Summers, to this day, one of the greatest mentors I've ever had. He really, again, championed me and was encouraging to me and gave me huge tips, just even on hosting and on how to do this. And to this day, I'll hear from him. He'll say, "Hey, they're doing a SNL thing on Carmen," whatever. He'll text her, whatever, And yeah, I've just been very lucky with all that stuff. It had nothing to do with me. I just kind of fall into these things, and not really a plan. So, but I've just met some cool people. It's great. I was excited to meet you today because I just, I know he's going to be cool. And then I watched a couple of the episodes. Oh yeah, this is going to work good. Yeah, this is going to be another one. Maybe we'll meet each other on the road doing those things.
Would love that. Would
Yeah.
absolutely love
Yeah,
that.
that'd be great.
Questions I want to know from Carmen days. When did you know it was becoming popular? How early on did you start going, oh goodness,
I think
got something?
I think it was the first time we did a mall show in Pittsburgh, which is one of the places was it Pittsburgh? Yeah, Pittsburgh. I think it was one of the co-producers. The mall show in Pittsburgh, and it was one of the first ones we did. Had the full cast, and we did an actual game, right? And we were giving away a computer, back in whatever that was, 92, 91.
Right, that was a big deal.
Big deal getting a computer. And to your point, it was like 10,000, 20, 12,000 people,
Yeah.
Stupid mall and
Right.
just going crazy. And that's when I said, oh, this is actually going out on the air, I guess. And people are seeing it occasionally. Okay, got it. Because like you say, there's no internet, no, obviously, old
Right.
guys always say that. We always want to point that out to everybody, but yeah. So
But
I
it
think
was
it's
true.
probably, yeah, I think it's probably that show that I started getting how big it was. And then as the kids would come in and their excitement to see stuff and, having us come out and stuff. So yeah, it was just, look, I think bottom line, Carey, what we're trying to say with our episode here today, with your episode today, is someone needs to bring back Barney. Someone needs to bring back Carmen Sandiego. Because they do. I'm sorry, but they do, Both
They do.
They're still needed. So you don't have to be with me, but it needs to be with somebody. And
Right.
because we always thought our show was not about places on a map, but it's more about people, cultures on a map. There are things happening out there that you need to know. It's important to know because as the world gets smaller, it matters that how you live your life or your religion or your culture or food is yours, and that's great. And we need to know about that and work together with that. And I love you, you love me.
So what all are you doing these days?
Well, we do a lot of writing still, and I do like I say, we do some stuff for highlights. We've done stuff for highlights. I do stuff for a site called Go Noodle, which is a lot of movement for kids. So I do some songs for them and some sketches, and write for the NFL through them. I do a lot of voiceover, and so I do, like, if you have a Discover card, you can call the Discover card, and you'll talk to me. I'll ask for your social security number occasionally. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and there's a bank in Canada, and I'm doing a hypnotism app for some Greeks in a British accent this week and next. So my biggest thing now, Carrie, is to try to not get stuck in my time machine of 1992 and accept the fact that it's not as fun to do my voiceovers in my closet as it used to be in a cool studio downtown.
Right.
But I still am going to do it, and it's gonna sound great, and it's what it is. We're gonna have interviews over my computer and So I try to just roll with how it is now and keep rolling, as opposed to whatever it used to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm in Keller, Texas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And computer too. But it's fun, and there's something special about it.
It is. It's a new day, and it's an exciting time, to see all these things happen. I think for some of us old guys, it takes me a little longer to catch on, because I see you have a lot of presence, website. I'm very proud of you. Not proud of you, but I mean, I'm in awe of you, because I'm not that stuff, and I need to be. So.
Well, it took me a minute. It took me a minute as well. Don't worry, because I was there. And then I just, I'm going to jump in this. And a lot of it had to do with the response that I was getting.
Yeah. Well, you're very good at it too, man. I'm not to say it. I think, like hosting, I think interviewing is a deceptively hard gig, because you're leading it, but you're in the background, but you're leading it, but we can't do without you, but you're kind of letting the other guy, it's like the great Carson, right? Who's still my favorite. He was still the greatest because he would sit there and laugh at Buddy Hackett, smoking a cigarette, laughing crazy. Buddy Hackett's getting all the jokes. We'll be back right after this. And you love Johnny Carson. He's not doing any topping or anything. It's just, you know what I mean?
Right.
Kind of anyway, I think you're very good.
I do.
You're in that vein.
Thank you. Yeah. And I know who Buddy Hackett is.
You
No, I know. Just when you mentioned Buddy Hackett, I grew up. My dad, you won't believe this, but we lived in Las Vegas for a little bit, and he was our neighbor.
Get out of town.
True story. And my parents threw a party one time, and he walked in. He because it was in the backyard, and he came in, just like and met everyone, and then had a drink, and then he left.
Unbelievable. When you said you knew Buddy Hackett, I thought you meant you knew who he was.
I knew who he was. Well, I did. That's what I meant, because I was a kid but
he was in your house.
He was in our house. Yeah, he was in our house. So when you said Buddy Hackett, I was like, oh my God.
Well, those old shows are great because, he wasn't pushing a movie or anything. He was just telling funny stories.
Right.
And then you leave. It's terrific.
Right. That's exactly what they
did. Fantastic. It's great.
So I got to talk real quick. So you're going to get out. Comic-Cons are huge. You're going to get out to some of these.
That's what I hear. I've never done them. Have you done a bunch of them?
I've been to a few of them. And going to start doing some more, but yeah.
It sounds like it's fun. I will be going as a member of Rockapella, though. I just want you to know. So don't blow
you going to warm
cover.
up your voice?
Well, I'm not going to sing. I'm just going to tell people I'm part of Rockapella. They'll be very excited, and that's how we're going to do it. I'm going to stand kind of next to them. You're going to be on the end. But remember that bald dude? He was on the show too.
I think you're going to be surprised.
I don't know, man. I'm telling you, I've been with these boys before. And I'm telling you, I'll have one here and one here. We're signing, and they will skip just like that. Go to the next guy. Any other performer this would bother. I think it's hilarious. I don't care. I get paid at the end of the day. It doesn't matter to me.
Well, I got to tell you, I loved you on the show. Now I even love you
Thank you.
more because
Oh, thanks,
this has
man.
been
It's a
just such an absolute pleasure.
real pleasure. You're very good, and you made it really comfortable. I hate doing these things, and this was actually quite fun. This is a good one. So maybe I
Well,
should
well,
turn the corner.
I knew we would have some stories. We'd have a lot of similarities on experiences and things of that nature. And
This is great.
I just was so excited that you you wanted to be on. You would come do this.
Of course, like I say, I'm a fan. And congratulations again on your new marriage. I'm excited for you. It's just great.
Well, thank you, thank you. She's a widow with two teenagers,
Oh, wow.
and they grew up with a lot of this stuff. So she's always laughing. She's like,
Oh,
"Oh my gosh, you're talking to who?" And
oh, that's great.
it's crazy. And of
That's
course, the whole
great.
Bernie thing, they didn't know what to think about it. The teenagers were like, "Your mom, you're dating who?"
There are jokes just waiting to be told on that one.
Yes.
That is a setup right there.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
dating Barney.
it's fascinating that you met your wife on the show.
Oh, that I met my, yes, I know.
Yeah, your wife, because
Yeah.
she was in, what was she? What did she do for the
She was
show?
one of the producers.
Oh.
She was one of the producers, she was there from the very beginning. And my wife is just, we've been married 29 years now. And
Wow.
I'm just nuts about her still. I think she's more gorgeous than ever, but she's always been very kind, but very smart, very hardworking, and just funny. And what happened was she did not want me for the show. She did not want to hire me for the show. She was the one producer who didn't want me. And she said, because he's too cocky and I don't think he's right for the show. And she was right. I didn't know her. I didn't speak any language. I'm a dyslexic. I can't, she's right. She was the one who didn't want me. And then they hired me anyway, because they, like I say, they knew me from other shows. And then when we got together, they said, well, Pinch, her name is Pinch. They said, Pinch, we have some good news, bad news. We've selected a host. Bad news is it's Greg Lee, and you need to work with him because he's dyslexic and can't read his card. So you've got to work. You're the language person. You've got to teach him how to say all the stuff. So it was the first year was a disaster. She hated me. She was just like, this guy doesn't know anything. He can't say anything. He won't do the international phonics system because that's not helping me. I got to write it in my own hand, my own arrows and pictures like I did all through school, But yeah, so we got to be really great friends for a long time, and then we got married after that. So yeah, that alone was worth everything to me. So yeah,
That story alone is awesome.
well, you love her. Once you meet her, then people forget about me. That is absolutely true. I have friends since I was 8 years old. They'll call the house. Hey, Glenn, how's it going? Hey, Greg, I need to talk to Pinch. I said, well, you're my friend, right? Yeah, I know. Just let me talk to Pinch. Oh, okay. That's how it goes. Greg and Pinch.
It's already
Easy.
happening here as well. A lot of my Bernie friends were immediately going to Andrea, and I was like, man, I see where this is going.
Yeah, you won. What do you want? You're the winner.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Carey. A real pleasure. Thanks. And great success to the rest of your episodes and however long you want to stay with this. I think you're really good. You should just keep going.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay, man.
Thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you soon in person.
Okay. Can't wait. See you, Gumshoes.
Well, thank you so much for watching Purple Roads. And remember to keep your eyes, ears, and your heart open, and you'll find your purple road. We'll see you next week.